I was living a criminal lifestyle, and I did not see at that time how going to college was going to ease my circumstances in my community, in my household. It wasn't in my heart. And shortly after graduating high school, I wound up in the penitentiary.
I failed kindergarten and I failed the 8th grade. So by the time I went to the 9th grade, I was a gang member by then. At that point, like, I was ashamed already, feeling like the class that I was in is already in the 10th grade, which made me feel like I was a failure.
You know, stereotypes you hear about Asian kids being super smart. I was not one of them. And so that kind of like really messed me up. I felt that the only path for me was to be like a criminal. I mean, it was something that I thought I was good at, and something that gave me those accolades from peers that were also degenerates.
Though I enjoyed going to school, I still had my other issues that I haven't even dealt with. I got involved in gangs and different things. And, you know, eventually I was arrested and I was sentenced to basically death by incarceration when I was 20 years old.
In California's prisons, education offers hope. Incarcerated people obtaining associate degrees was common. But in 2016, Cal State LA brought bachelor's degrees inside, making California a leader in prison education. It is at Lancaster State Prison in Los Angeles County where the story of 4 men, 3 facing life without parole for crimes related to murder, begins. For them, and many like them, pursuing a bachelor's degree would become the first step to transforming their lives and finding redemption.
When I arrived to prison, there weren't like educational programs. There was hardly any programs that were designed for, you know, rehabilitation. It was unheard of back then. And me having life without the possibility of parole, a lot of the programs that were available, like AA and NA, they happened on the weekends, and education and all those things weren't afforded to us. I had been to maybe 6 different maximum security institutions. It was just a cycle of just violence everywhere. It wasn't until like 2012 when I actually went to Lancaster, California State Prison, Los Angeles County, where the population there was really like, they were really involved in like higher education and things like that.
I wound up going to the Hole, which is the prison inside of the prison. And when I got out, I was sitting in the classification. And that's where I met Mr. Hobbs at. He was the supervisor of all of the counselors. He said, so listening to you, you sound like a really nice guy. He said, but looking at your file, you seem like a real prick. I was like, wow, okay. So he told me, you need to stop arguing with these staff members because they write something and put it in your file and it sticks with you. And that's a wrap. And then prior to me leaving, he said, how would you like to come work for me? And I was like, wait a minute. So Hobbs saw me, you know, and he made me actually feel like a whole person, something that very few people had ever done. And he suggested that I attend college, and he actually taught one of the courses. So he was like, and I'll teach the speech course, so you're going to be in my class. So that's how it begun. That was my very first class was speech with Hobbs. And from there, the process begun.
And so when Cal State LA came, it was actually one of the English professors from the English department. He came, he met some of the men, and he realized like all of us were in school, and some of us had like 6 degrees, and it was like, there's just paper, because the majority of the people there were sentenced to die in prison, death by incarceration. And so like for us, like we had the degree, but what would we do with it? He was impressed, and he said that we needed a bachelor's degree program. And so he started working on that with the help of, you know, other staff and faculty at Cal State LA. and we eventually got a program.
Do a lot of stuff, and often in an exam, you know, a lot of the time is pre-writing, understanding the question, jotting down thoughts and things like that. You haven't actually started.
Cal State LA was awarded some money from the Department of Justice, and then also we got a grant from the Mellon Foundation and from the Vera Institute as well. And those monies were the monies that were able to start all the BA programs and all the work we're doing in prison.
The prison BA program, they're getting a bachelor's degree in communication studies from Cal State LA. It's the same degree that our students on the LA campus get. There are a number of BA programs that are correspondence courses. This is the first one in the state of California that is actually on site. So we are physically in the classroom with the students. We teach them just like we would our students on main LA campus.
And so initially there were issues because out of the 25 people that were enrolled in the program, 22 of us had life without the possibility of parole.
Your definition of recourse, right, a way out, right, that creates the idea of... Right,
The first time I went in to start the program in prison, we didn't have a classroom, we didn't have anything. We were out on the yard where guys were doing the pull-ups. The guys were so kind of hungry to start this and to learn that even as loud and as distracting it was, we still conducted class. And then the guard wouldn't let me out. I guess he wanted to intimidate me and thought I wouldn't come back. So I was in there for like 5 hours. And then finally there was a change of shift and I got out. And then I just kept coming back.
You could have worked anywhere else, and you chose to work in a prison where there's a slight chance that something can happen, and you're willing to do that. I had life without parole, so having a degree in prison, for what? I knew there was good in the world, but I never really experienced it like that. To actually see some people wanting to come in here and teach us, and you run across that in here sometimes, but it's very rare. So having that interaction with them and them willing to answer every question that we had, it made you feel like, you were a part. And I guess it connects to how I wanted to feel all along since I was a child. But I just went to the negative side of things and got it from guys around at the park or on the streets. So having it here just re-energized me in a way that I didn't think could happen.
You can kind of think of life without parole, incarcerated students as tenured professors. They're the ones that create a stability on the yard because they're not going anywhere. And they're the ones that can induct in young people when they're coming in, either onto the positive path of programming, or, those unfortunately are the same people that run the gangs and, induct them into another kind of path when they come into prison.
Was always a question that you would hear. You're never going home. What you gonna do with that? And fortunately for me, I had the motivation for my mother.
My mother could not read or write. She escaped from Cambodia during its genocide, making it to America and raising 4 kids and countless grandchildren without an education. She knew, though, the importance of one, even when I did not.
I hadn't seen my mother the first 10 years of my prison term. Obviously I was institutionalized by then, so being in a prison visiting room, I wasn't even fully present with them. As just being incarcerated gets you very antsy. At the end of the visiting, my mother said, "I love you," to me in English. And I've never heard her say that. As I keep playing it back and I'm like she say that, you know what I mean? And this is before my full-on transformation or journey to change, and I just felt this enormous shame, right? But I didn't fully appreciate her when I was when I was home.
In 2019, during the fall semester, my mother passed away due to stage 4 lung cancer. My educational journey is because of her.
In the winter of 1994, hidden behind the Tehachapi Mountains, a dark green transportation bus rested like a sleeping dragon idling in the snow.
Before we started the BA program, I was in a place where we were already doing inner work. We were doing a tremendous amount of inner work. That was the culture of the facility that I was on. That environment was conducive to my transformation, and I played a part in developing other programs and helping other people. And all I needed was the right soil, the right environment to be able to grow.
When Dr. Roy came in, the way he talked to you, the way he interacted with you was as if you were a human being, and you don't get that while you're in prison.
This is the first time that we got to talk to people who weren't officers, correctional officers or staff. And then we got to share with them like what it means to have life without the possibility of parole, to know that you're gonna die in prison, the impact that it has on not just us, but our families and everybody else as well.
When they say, oh, you guys are gonna get a comm degree, everybody's like, a what? What can you do with the comm degree? And as each semester passed, you know, it just started opening our eyes to how we communicate with people, how so many misunderstandings in prison happen, and it really kind of just changed everything.
Narratives that are set in place about the people who are sentenced to die in prison. Like you have to paint us, these individuals, as these type of monsters to make that make sense. And so we had to combat against that, like this really deep-rooted understanding of who we were as people. So it was this discourse taking place like, why would we want to give them, why would we waste money, you know, educating some people who were going to die in prison? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Joey would have done great things if his life hadn't been taken from him. Mr. Burnett has gotten the ability to do the things he never allowed my brother to do: get married, have kids, finish college, perhaps be a grandfather. Daniel Condrath, brother.
Mr. Burnett feels he deserves a second chance because of his bad childhood. There was domestic violence in his household. I was also raised by a single mother along with my 5 siblings. There was domestic violence in our household as well, but we all managed to grow up and be productive members of society. Mr. Burnett is not a victim. Janet Julian, sister.
We had to advocate for ourselves. This was the first time having to step into this space and say, hey, I'm a human being, I deserve an education, and this is why.
Well, there are colleagues in the legislature who still, who still believe that once you've committed a crime, that's it. You shouldn't be given the same rights as everybody else. And that's just not who we are in California. That's not who we are more and more across the country. But comments like, well, why invest in them? Why spend money on them? They committed these crimes. They don't deserve this. As if to say, well, let's punish them for the rest of their lives.
There has absolutely been no negative reaction. It was actually, I believe, 2 years ago that we sat down with Cal State University, Los Angeles for our first meeting. And the warden, even at that time, was totally open to the possibilities. Everyone has welcomed this opportunity for our offenders.
Monetarily, financially, okay, they're not having to pay, but they're having to pay in other ways. So
if they are taking the time to make themselves a better person, because they're incarcerated, they got to set everything else aside in their personal lives incarcerated personal lives to come here, be self-disciplined, to go through the rigor of class. I don't have a problem with it personally.
Oh, you mean that building down there? That's also student housing?
It's interesting because if you ask the average person, are you the same person that you were when you were 18 years old? They're going to say no. A friend of mine said, everybody has a right to redemption. And that's what we had. We had a right to redemption. We wanted to redeem ourselves.
In the kind of hierarchy of prison, there's a status that comes with life without parole. It's very different than being in there for, a year or two. And so when you have those people that have that kind of prison status getting degrees, you're setting a tone for everyone else on the yard. So there's a benefit there. Then there's another benefit, another ripple effect with the family members. If you have people whose families are generationally excluded from higher education by and large, and you suddenly, being my uncle, my father, my grandfather's getting a degree and he's in prison, well, maybe I can do that. And so we've had numerous cases of, relatives, friends, young gang members on the outside being inspired to go to school because they see someone like Alan getting a degree.
All they can think of is like, wow, because when you think of a person being in prison, this is not what you typically think of.
I did know about the college, the AA program in AR, and I knew that I can get in because I talked to the proctor about like, can I get in that? Will they like let me get in that book club?
It's very vital to the survival of the program that you get like-minded individuals. All of them have to be like-minded individuals. All of them have to want to be doing better and have to know that if they mess up, they get kicked off the yard.
And then I said, I want to go to AR. And then even the council, like, AR, right? Because even he knows that I was a former gang member. They have your file. Like, you're about to go to AR? In their minds, they're so affected by the gang culture that they even know, like, oh, yeah, you about to go over there, man? There goes your reputation. It was scary. I remember the day when they told me to transpack, to move your stuff, gather your things and go to AR. And the gang guys that's on the yard, they obviously hear it. Like, Yin, pack it up. And they're like, where you going? Like, and I've been saying I'm going there, but for it to actually happen right now, I'm like, oh man, I wonder if they're gonna like take off on me right now because they know I'm going over here. And you know what? They were happy for me. They shook my hand, gave me a hug, and wished me the best. Which I was like, man. Right? And, that was another like stone that I was able to put in this, foundation, because even those that were in the negative lifestyles wanted to see somebody do better. Like it's in them, like it was in me, like it was in every Cal State brother that you guys have interviewed, and it's in them too. It's just, how to bring that about. And yeah, it was. I hurried up and pushed that cartel.
Pursuing my higher education while incarcerated has actually given me an opportunity to bond with my family and serve as the motivation that they needed to stay focused and accomplish their own personal goals.
Yeah, let's get in the car.
Thank you. So awesome. What up, y'all?
It goes back to the transformation. Oftentimes, it is that population or that group that are the biggest advocates for education and rehabilitation. So despite the fact that some of them may remain here within the institution, they continue to advocate for education. Previously, those that were incarcerated were put aside. And having a background in education, I realized that perhaps it wasn't the student, perhaps it was the traditional education system that had actually failed the student. Coming into corrections, it gave me an opportunity to continue to not only provide this rehabilitative tool, but still continue to try to level the playing field.
You know, because again, a lot of us do activist work, and a lot of the people we
For so long in my youth and stuff, I just always tried to please people, and regardless of how I felt about a situation or whatnot. And again, through my education stuff, just realized, you know, that's not living. In that 23 years that I was down, you know, I did a lot of like work and self-reflection. A lot of it was hard, especially pertaining to Mr. Goodwin, and having to accept the fact that I took his life over nothing but my pride. And all I can do is live the best life I can in honor of him.
Getting the slang and bang, but what I now understand, and nobody back then seen to ascertain and explain, is that me and that uncool group of youth who thought we were.
I wrote a curriculum for the parole preparation workshop, which was the first 10P group. It stands for Prisoner's Parole Portfolio as Positive Programming and Prior Preparation that Prevents a Poor Performance. And when I wrote this curriculum, it was based on my own needs, what I needed to know about parole or how to go to the Board of Parole hearings. It was based on what I learned about studying antisocial personality disorder, reading the DSM-5, and understanding my own triggers and shortcomings and causative factors. So to date, the 10P program has been one of the best kept secrets inside CDCR. It was born on a level 4 maximum security 180 yard in adversity.
To rehabilitate the image of people, hearing her story, does it cause you to grow in empathy and take a second look at what you may have done and landed you here?
And we just had a milestone event that was so incredible. So the Survivor Offender Mediation Seminar that just took place in Lancaster, we had Cheryl Ward Kaiser, who was a crime survivor, and Lester Polk, who was the offender, sit down and talk. And I brought community there to support.
That judge didn't want to give it to you.
And it was such a powerful event and a real milestone for, like I said, not only myself and the 10P program, but just for humanity. Because the level of forgiveness that was exhibited, the transformation that was exhibited, is something that just shows us all that there's so much more to being human.
Thank you, totally appreciate you.
Intercultural communication is all about understanding difference. It's about understanding if there's somebody who is different than me, how do I communicate in a way that is productive and leads to understanding rather than division. And a lot of the guys have said to me, a lot of the students have said to me that they have taken a lot of the principles in the class in order to have better conversations on the yard with the other guys, with other people, and things like that. And that's good to hear.
And AR had a element somewhat, but not like anywhere else. So the element there was very, very minimal, and most of the guys there were definitely on a different trajectory, and a culture there that was just shell-shocking, to be honest, that I thought I would never see in prison. I heard about it, but I just was like, I don't believe it. But, pursuing college is what allowed me to see it and believe it and know that prison doesn't have to be like that.
The BA program is a BA in Comm Studies. What's different about it is that it's designed, all the faculty are trained with this goal of the kind of cultivation and transformation of human beings is kind of baked into the program. So to give you an example of that, what we try and do in the training is as faculty create their syllabi, we encourage more innovative, creative assignments that allow for a kind of space of reflection and allow for a space of not just personal transformation, but kind of imagining a better world as well, and then kind of trying to give the students the tools to achieve that better world as well in some kind of way.
Justice embodied in the Declaration of Independence.
They were actually giving us tools on how to frame our conversation, different ways of how we could look at the world through communication studies. And so it was a win-win for all of us, I think, at the end of the day. And what I found out or what I realized during that, this is how we need to have these conversations, not just inside a prison in a classroom setting, but in society as a whole. People need to know, there is a reason why people grow up and commit crime.
Yeah, we're excited.
Yeah, it's good to have young people involved in this type of work, as well.
Yeah.
Our incarceration system says, one, you pay the price for the crime that you committed, but you're also supposed to be rehabilitated. And rehabilitation includes or should include education, because then when you leave, you have the skills, you have the confidence, you have the opportunity to know that you're going to be able to get a good paying job or a career.
I show myself so much more than I ever thought I could be. And now that I know, I promise a day won't roll by without me recognizing that I'm an exceptional being.
This is just my personal perspective on it. So I don't want to say I'm speaking for Cal State LA, but the real value of the educational process that for me, it has nothing to do with the kind of getting jobs, the recidivism or anything like that. It's when you see someone that's imprisoned, not just physically, but imprisoned in this this narrative of who they are, this suffering, this trauma, and then you see that education can free that person.
Express her love, the more it broke me down. And it started to show me I'm harming people that are good people. These are good people that we are harming. But we can't see nothing because we so hurt within ourselves.
That's what motivates me, and that's what keeps me coming back. And to me, that's the heart of the program, and everything else can kind of take place from there. Because if you can get, 50 Allens coming out of prison and people can see that, then these other changes will eventually happen.
Yeah, I can feel it shaking.
Yeah, you can feel it, huh?
Those are bridges.
I believe that if you stay in a negative mind space, that's all you're gonna know is negativity. And if you can't learn to forgive yourself for the horrible choices you made, then you're not gonna be able to really grow and move forward. And one of the things that you learn in some of these classes especially about amends, living amends, it's I can't bring Mr. Goodwin back, so what can I do? And it's, you live the best life you can in the sense of being the best person you can if you ever get the chance to be back out here.
I always tell my nephew, don't assume things about people. You don't know anything
That's
about
right.
these people, especially strangers.
That's
You
totally
don't.
true.
You don't know what they've been through. You don't know what they
That's a good
live
point.
with and all that stuff. And
Not
and I
going
told him,
back to the old habits or the old things that you used to do as far as criminality and all that stuff.
We're representatives of our cohorts, Cal State LA, the people that believed in us, helped us, You know, and like through like our education, right? Like that's why we're so fortunate, bro. Like to have gone through that experience that we went through, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like that knowledge, you know, of critically thinking about shit. You know what I'm saying? And being able to not just the academia, 10 Ps and Gogi and AVP, all these other educations that are very seldomly appreciated,
Right.
And don't really people don't really understand that, you know, can really help you.
When I was growing up, you got people getting beat up, molested, their parents are smoking, all this stuff taking place in the house. Then they're supposed to go to school and learn.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing when we first in the pen. You know what I'm saying? You got all this stuff taking place, all of us trauma-filled, and we're supposed to go in a classroom setting and learn. It wasn't until we got those other educations, like you talking about that, you know, like me specifically, I was able to sit in a multicultural, you know, multi-ethnic room and really appreciate and respect everyone.
Yeah.
Because that's what the Cal State cohorts were. There was just this melting pot of like, you know, beauty, humanity, wisdom, and everything just swirling. So those two educations I won't say two, have to go together. Yeah, they have to go together.
I got out in June of 2020, and I began to continue to take classes on the outside at Cal State LA. I graduated in 2021. There was times like when I was in prison, I used to sit on my bed and think like, God, how cool would it be to just step on the campus, you know? And so now here it is, I'm getting my degree, and I thought that I was never gonna get out of prison. I'm still happy about it, honestly. Like it took me like 2 months before I actually put my cap and gown in the closet. Like, I'm just gonna leave this out here and just look at this for a little bit.
I'm gonna be brief. I wanna thank the department. Thank you for allowing us to have the opportunity to have this program here on the Progressive Programming Facility. And I wanna thank Cal State LA for taking the chance on us on life without the possibility of parole inmates sentenced to death by incarceration. That's what that means. I want to thank the professors. Y'all changed our lives. When I say you
having my degree and everything that I learned while I was in Cal State LA, it's helped me to be able to like step in these spaces and contribute. I'll say that.
Oh, shoot, that's on camera.
Yeah. Don't edit, don't cut that out.
Don't cut that out.
Since I've been home, I also walked the stage on the campus, and I graduated magna cum laude. You know what I mean? So it's been, man, quite the journey, and the educational aspect of it is really powerful, and it gives me a strong sense of accomplishment that I'm so grateful for, and no one can take that away from me, because once you get that education, it's yours.
Thank you very much.
Miss college life,
yeah,
just
keeping
not
it alive, you know what I'm saying?
classwork. That's right. Do not miss that at all.
For me, my whole drug use and stuff was surrounded by my insecurities and these traumas that I experienced that I didn't know how to process and I didn't know how to deal with. And one of the things in the process of me doing all these classes inside and learning all these things of how to process this and how to let things go and how to just move forward, I still have insecurities, but like they're not as dominant as they once were. I want to feel everything I possibly can, whether it's pain, you know, I mean, love, or just anything, just happiness, you know. I don't want to ever shut myself off from feeling those things, because I know now not just how to process them, but that's what makes me human, and that's what makes me who I am.
Don't have it to today, and at that time I didn't have it at all either. So, but she was mad at the kids, and I was like, man, it is what it is. Like, people gonna know.
Nothing wrong to be like prideful of your reputation and whatever it is that you pursue, whether you're, you know, a sports player, a lawyer, or, you know, you want to be good at what you do, like, right? Like, this is why you work hard. This is why you learn, and the criminal lifestyle is no different, right? Like, they want to be good at what they do, right? To be released from that, I believe, like, it takes a lot. It takes like a community effort. Not everybody's gonna get to have some type of moment, right? Like I was able to have with my mother to break a bond that I had secured my life to. Not everybody is blessed to have that moment. So what is it that we can do to create a culture to have somebody feel free enough to say, I could step away from that. I don't have to be that the rest of my life.